Well, welcome to the Return to Torah YouTube channel. This is the season of Passover, or as some celebrate, Easter. And anytime this comes up, it seems like we have some different people, not hostile, but they just wonder why we keep such different holidays than what the rest of the world does with Easter and Christmas and these different things and things we don't do, such as Halloween and things of that nature. Little bit about me. I remember when I was a kid, my mother wasn't particularly religious, but a lot of times I would take myself to church. I grew up, it was just that era. And there were a few churches within walking distance, or I would go to my grandmother's and go to church up there. But she would dress me up. I'd have the pastel dress shirt on because it was Easter, and I remember the Hershey's Kiss, or it was a little football shape, melting in my pocket, making a mess in the shirt. But I grew up celebrating these holidays and never really thought anything about it. Like most people really don't. It's our tradition. It's what makes us American. It's what makes us, quote, Christian, unquote. But I never really thought much about it until I started doing a deeper study in the Bible. And then as I grew older, I started getting a deep interest in history. And when you're studying the Bible and you're studying history, if you are honest with yourself, you start seeing the holes in what you believe. But as I said, I've titled this, Why Do You People Keep Different Holidays? Because, I mean, that's what it is. And truthfully, if it's an honest question, I don't mind answering this one. It's just a conversation you have with people. But first off, let's define holiday. Well, number one, in the United States, number one really isn't how we define holiday. A day free from work that one may spend at leisure, especially a day on which customer law dictates halting general business activity to commemorate or celebrate a particular event, but a religious feast day, a holy day. That is where the word holiday comes from. And most of what I'm talking about, I'm not referring to the 4th of July or Labor Day or Memorial Day, but I'm talking about the big religious festivals, what people believe are Christian holidays. But a religious feast day, a holy day, holiday. So this is the Hebrew, it's Hagag, and this is to celebrate, to hold a feast, to make a pilgrimage. And this is I don't want to say Jewish because it's not Jewish, it is the Hebrew understanding. The way we celebrate holidays in North America is not the way that the Israel would celebrate a holiday, but they're two different critters. We belong to a small organization, the CACI, and we all meet together a couple times a year, and it's more like a family reunion than anything. But we come together and we worship God, and we eat a lot of food, and we do a lot of talking, and we have a lot of fellowship. And it's more along the line when you make that effort and you leave to go celebrate with other believers, it puts just a little more meaning into it. But I've got 20 slides on this, so I'm going to move along. This is the book of Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter. These are the statutes and the ordinances which you shall observe to do in the land, which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you to possess it. All the days that you live in the earth, you shall surely destroy all the places in which the nations that you shall dispossess serve their gods. On the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree, you shall break down their altars and dash their pillars in pieces, and burn their Asherah poles with fire. Another thing about when I was growing up, we were King James. I remember in the Baptist church at one point, my dad had me there at the Baptist church, and that they gave me an NIV Bible, but I just never could. I never could make do with it. But this is so much different than the KJV. This is the World English Bible Messianic Edition. A cherub is nowhere to be mentioned in the King James Version. I think it just might say pillar or something to that, something like that. But the Asherah poles with fire, it means something different. It's not just a pillar, but we're going to get into this. You shall cut down the engraved images of their gods. You shall destroy their name out of that place. You shall not do so to the Lord your God. So they're around Mount Sinai, and Moses has gone up to the mountain, and they've been down there, and they've been waiting for a while, and they get a hold of Aaron, and they say, well, this guy Moses, we don't know what happened to him. But Exodus, the 32nd chapter, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, come, make us gods which shall go before us. For as this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him. Aaron said to them, take off the golden rings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them to me. And the people took off the golden rings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. He received what they had handed him and fashioned it with an engraving tool and made it a molten calf. And they said, these are your gods, Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. So they are sacrificing to this golden calf. And that they're not calling it some kind of foreign image by a foreign name. They're saying, this is your Elohim, that this is your God. And while they're telling him this, Moses is up there and he's receiving a word from the Lord saying, don't make to yourself any graven images. We read this and it's hard in our modern Western mindset to understand this. But when the children of Israel came up out of Egypt, and the Lord says, you shall have no other gods before me. In the mind of Israel at that time, because they had been polluted with Egypt, they thought Elohim, they thought I am, Yahweh, was just another one of many gods. They didn't know that he was the only true God, or he was the one that created everything. They just thought he was another God. So it's nothing for the children of Israel at this point in their lives to make this image and to call it Elohim, because in their mind, I mean, that's exactly who it could be, but they did not know their God at this point. So we think about that time, and we think about what Moses did, how he ground it up in powder and made a form of water of separation or water of jealousy, and he made the people drink it. And anyways, the Levites came out, and 3,000 of the children of Israel were slain during that time. And we think about, well, the golden calf. Anytime somebody says something about the golden calf, 9 times out of 10, that's the golden calf that's going to come to their minds. But that's not where it ended. 1 Kings, Jeroboam said in his heart, now the kingdom will return to the house of David. I hope you are familiar with this. I could do a lot more reading. It's fascinating. God made a promise to Jeroboam similar to the promise that he had made to David. that God was going to give him the 10 northern tribes and that he would make him a king and his descendants would rule after him. But Jeroboam did not have the faith in his heart that David had. But it says, now the kingdom will return to the house of David. This is Jeroboam and Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, have split. If this people goes up to offer sacrifice in the Lord's house at Jerusalem, then the heart of this people will turn again to their Lord, even to Rehoboam, king of Judah. And they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. And he said to them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Look and see your gods, Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. How many hundreds of years later? And he doesn't just make 1 calf of gold. He makes 2 calves of gold. And he sends, 1 to Bethel and 1 to Dan. And he says, it's too much for you to go to Jerusalem and worship, so you come up here and you worship before these golden calves. These are the gods that brought you up out of the land of Egypt. That's bad. That's insulting. But he goes further. Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month, on the 15th day of the month, like the feast that is in Judah. And he went up to the altar. He did so in Bethel, sacrificing to the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places that he had made. He went up to the altar which he had made in Bethel on the 15th day in the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart. And he ordained a feast for the children of Israel, and went up to the altar and burned incense. Okay, I've got this underlined here. Like the feast that is in Judah. The children of Judah at this time, they were still keeping the feast that the Lord had given them to keep. And Jeroboam is thinking that if the children of the 10 northern tribes go to Jerusalem, then they're going to just stay there and he's going to lose the kingdom or somebody's going to kill him or something. He had no faith in God whatsoever. He created his own religion. And this feast that is in Judah, he created his own holiday to go with his own religion. But it says on the 15th day of the 8th month, he did this so it would look just like what the children of Israel were told to do by Elohim, by Yahweh, in the wilderness, in the 23rd chapter of the book of Leviticus. He ordained a feast for the children of Israel and went up to the altar to burn incense. Okay, now this is the feast that I'm referring to. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say, on the 15th day of this 7th month is the feast of booths, for 7 days to the Lord. On the first day shall be an holy convocation. You shall do no regular work. Jeroboam is devising this holiday out of his own heart to keep the children of the 10 northern tribes from going to Jerusalem to worship the one true God. In the 23rd chapter of the book of Leviticus, Yahweh had given specific instructions to the children of Israel as a whole, and he gave them holidays. Now, I'll probably get into this in coming episodes, but those feast days, those holidays, every single one of them that was given was prophetic. Every single one of them was a glimpse into the future at a major event that the Lord would perform. it was important for them to keep these things. But when their heart turned to Jeroboam and their heart turned away from the Lord, they left Judah as being the only ones that were keeping it. And I understand Benjamin was there with Judah, but Benjamin was so small at this point of time that they were just kind of like a vassal state to Judah, so to speak. And there was Levites also. I mean, the temple was in Jerusalem, so there were children of Levi, and there were the sons of Aaron, the priests. They would have stayed there with the temple. But the point being is, they did something to try to maintain their connection with the true and living God that had brought them up out of Egypt. But Jeroboam had created this religion just out of fear of losing his kingdom, and he created it out of his own heart. So, Asherah poles. Says, okay, this is speaking of Manasseh. This is 1 Kings 21, verse 7. He set the engraved image of Asherah that he had made in the house of which the Lord said to David and to Solomon his son, in this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen, out of all the tribes of Israel will I put my name forever. So he put this Asherah pole in the temple of the living God. I'm trying to think. I don't believe... Okay, I didn't, so I'm going to have to wing it. Asherah, this is just another name for Ishtar, Astarte, or Diana. I believe when we specifically dealt with Passover and Easter, when we specifically dealt with those, we got into Astarte coming down in a giant egg into the river Euphrates, and she changed a bird into an egg-laying rabbit. But this is Asherah. It's all the same thing, and we miss a lot of it in the King James Version of the Bible. But I believe it is the book of Judges, or maybe the book of Joshua, or both. But it refers to that family of gods as the Baals. I mean, it's all Nimrod, and it's Semiramis, and it is Tammuz. It's all the same false gods, but this Asherah pole was all over the land of Israel and the land of Judah. Now, this is hundreds of years later, and they are still dealing with this. This is still a thing in the land of Judah. But this was speaking of Manasseh setting it up. This is speaking of Josiah tearing it down. He broke in pieces the pillars and cut down the Asherah poles and filled their places with the bones of men. But it grieved God for these people to continue worshiping these false gods. When he said, you shall have no other gods before me, he's a jealous God. We cannot do as the children of Israel did and try to worship that golden calf and call it Yahweh. He gave us specific instructions on how to worship him. He gave us specific feast days. But what the church has done in the last 2,000 years is what Israel had done in the previous 2,000 years. It makes you think of what Solomon said. There's nothing new under the sun, but Jehovah has had enough. Jeremiah, the 3rd chapter, verses 6 through 8. Moreover, the Lord said to me in the days of Josiah the king, have you seen that which backsliding Israel has done? She has gone up on every high mountain and under every green tree, and there has played the prostitute. I said after she had done all these things, she will return to me. But she didn't return, and her treacherous sister Judah saw it. I saw when for this very cause that backsliding Israel had committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorcement. Yet treacherous Judah, her sister, didn't fear, but she also went and played the prostitute. Because she took her prostitution lightly, the land was polluted, and she committed adultery with stones and with wood. Yet for all this, her treacherous sister Judah has not returned to me with her whole heart, but only in pretense, says the Lord. What does that passage of Scripture say to us? That they, as it says in the book of Isaiah, they draw near the Lord with their mouth, but their heart is far from him. What this is saying is they did not turn their whole heart toward God. They still held on to their pagan gods. They still held on to their pagan festivals that had infected Israel. By this time, Israel is a memory. The 10 northern tribes, the king of Assyria came in and had scattered the 10 northern tribes, and that left Judah and Benjamin standing. And they saw what God had allowed happen to Israel, and they still worship these false gods. Now, this is Lamentations, the 2nd chapter. I changed the verses here on you. It says, I changed the version. This is the NASB. The Lord has become like an enemy. He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all its palaces. He has destroyed its strongholds and multiplied in the daughter of Judah mourning and moaning. And he has violently treated his tabernacle like a garden booth. He has destroyed his appointed meeting place. The Lord has caused to be forgotten the appointed feasts and Sabbath in Zion, and he has despised king and priest in the indignation of his anger. The Lord has caused to be forgotten the appointed feast and Sabbath in Zion. When he cursed the people, when he punished the people, he took away the Moedim. He took away the feast days that he had given to them. What do people do when they don't have feast days? They create their own. They do their own thing. And that does not please God when he has given you instructions. But the Lord has caused to be forgotten the appointed feast and Sabbath in Zion. Basically, God is telling them at this point, okay, you want to play pagan, you go be a pagan. I'm going to take away the seal between me and you. I'm going to take away the Sabbath from you. I'm going to take away the appointed feasts. Okay, this is Deuteronomy. When the Lord your God cuts off the nations from before you, where you go in to dispossess them, and you dispossess them and dwell in their land, be careful that you are not ensnared to follow them. After that they are destroyed from before you, and that you not inquire after their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. Usually, December, people put up their Christmas trees, and I am not trying to cause a fight or cause hard feelings or anything like that, but the evergreen tree, the Christmas tree, comes straight out of paganism. In the era of information that we live in, you can easily find where there's like relief carvings of Assyrians decorating a Christmas tree. The problem is that's like 1,500 years before the time of the Messiah. But what Christianity has done is exactly what God told Israel not to do. How did these nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. If you take an abomination and you try to slap the name of Jehovah on it, it's still an abomination. If when Saul went out, King Saul, not the apostle, when King Saul went out and I can't remember the name of the king, but they were supposed to go out and they were supposed to just wipe them off the face of the earth. They were supposed to wipe out the king and the people and the cattle, and I mean just a whole 9 yards. And that's a conversation for another day, why he told them to destroy every single living thing that was in that nation or in that tribe. But Saul kept King Agag, I believe was his name. He kept him alive and the best of the sheep and of the oxen, and they were going to take those sheep and oxen and make sacrifice to the Lord. God already told them to destroy it. Samuel comes up, and Samuel's upset with Saul, and he says, I've done what God told me to do. And Samuel says, well, what means this bleating of sheep in my ears then? Samuel knew better, but he said to obey is better than sacrifice, because rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. God told you not to do it, and you pick it up and you do it anyway. It doesn't matter that he was going to sacrifice that cattle to Elohim, to Jehovah. It does not matter that that is what they were going to do. They did not do what God told them to do. How do these nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. You shall not do so to the Lord your God, for every abomination to the Lord which he hates have they done to their gods. For they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods. Whatever thing I command you, that shall you observe to do. You shall not add to it, nor take away from it. There's a reason, and there is a method, and there is a form, there is a system that the Lord wants to be worshiped using his ways. And when we try to take things out of pagan cultures and mix it in, and we say, well, this will be pleasing to God because, well, it doesn't mean that to me. I understand maybe Easter eggs are from a pagan ritual and murdered babies and they're dyed in their blood, but it doesn't mean that to me. Nobody cares what it means to you. Yes, I understand God looks on your heart. I understand that entirely. But when he tells you not to take up the things that these nations have laid down, when he tells you not to worship him that way, and then the individuals turn and they do it anyway, that is an abomination. You are doing what Jeroboam did when you did that. You're creating these things out of your own heart. That's not how God asked to be worshiped by his people. Obedience, that is the biggest way you can worship God, is obedience. And that does not mix paganism with the truth of Scripture, with the truth of Torah. So, Christian, in the first few centuries of Christianity, the Christians wanted to spread their religion around Europe. I'd like to interject here and say they weren't spreading Christianity so much as they were spreading Catholicism, but they were also quite fascinated by the religions that already existed. They knew that it would be difficult for ordinary people to completely divorce themselves from everything they had always known. This included the celebrations for the winter solstice. They had to give the people something that was familiar and known. Given that Jesus was born around the same time, it was easy enough to incorporate existing traditions into the celebration of the birth of Jesus. For one thing, that's a lie. Jesus was not born December 25th. As far as lining the winter solstice up, under the Julian calendar, December 25th would have been at the winter solstice, but we are now on the Gregorian calendar where they changed it around, and now it's a few days later for the December 25th. But the point still being, Yeshua was not born on December 25th. He was born during the Feast of Tabernacles, and they know it. The cultural melting pot of a pagan Easter. Easter is one of Christianity's highest and holiest days, the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. But the origins of today's very Christian holiday are firmly rooted in the ancient traditions of pagan religions from many parts of the world, which, with its blend of solemn religious symbolism and the fun of Easter eggs and bunny rabbits, yeah, when you know where that came from, that's not a laugh of humor, that is a laugh of sadness. Easter, as we know it, is a patchwork of beliefs and practices related to the themes of springtime, rebirth, renewal. So what does pagan mean? And more specifically, what involves a pagan Easter? Easter has nothing to do with Yeshua. They go out on the Easter Sunday, what they want to call it, and they go out for their sunrise service because it's just their tradition. They don't question it. Well, the book of John tells us Mary was at the tomb very early before the sun was even up, and Yeshua was already out of the tomb. That sunrise service goes back to Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. I suggest if you're not familiar with it, you go back and read it. People have taken what God calls abomination and they have mixed it with the truth. If your beliefs are half lie and half truth, then it's all lie. It does not matter the bits of truth because it's blended out. It does not matter. He has given us a form of worship. Am I saying you don't have any freedom? No, I'm not saying you don't have freedom, but I am saying you have no right to bring what has been called an abomination and try to use that to worship the Lord your God. And if you don't believe the thing about the Easter eggs, do yourself a favor. Do your own research. Prove me wrong, because you're not going to. What I am telling you, you're right. It's not Bible. It is secular history. But nobody wants to read secular history because they are more comfortable with their tradition than they are the truth. The problem is, many people look to Christianity as just another religion. Well, this is just what we believe. And, your beliefs in Muhammad are just as valid as my beliefs in Jesus. No, they're not. There's one God. Hear, O Israel, Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Muhammad's dead. Okay? Yeshua got up out of the tomb. Muhammad's dead. You do not have a valid religion when you've got a dead guy. Okay? Buddha is dead. Insert your false prophet here. Joseph Smith is dead. They're all dead. Yeshua got up out of the ground. And there is secular proof that Yeshua got up out of the ground. He left his tomb. There's proof in the Babylonian Talmud that Yeshua got out of the grave. When they're trying to destroy faith in Yeshua, they are actually validating the truth. But again, that's a time for another video. But I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her." Well, who's her? most of the time in prophecy, when it's a her, it's a church. And this is a false church. I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you have no participation in her sins, and that you don't receive of her plagues, for her sins have reached to the sky, and God has remembered her iniquities." This is Roman Catholicism. When you go to your Protestant church on Sunday, it has been said before, and it's the truth of the matter, Protestants are protesting Catholics. That is where the Protestant denominations have come from. They're protesting Catholics. Martin Luther came out of the Catholic Church, I'll give you that much, but he did not come far enough out. John Wesley came out of the Anglican Church, but he did not come far enough. They still have this Babylonian paganism that is sticking to them. That's why that voice is coming from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you have no participation in her sins." What are her sins? Their multitude. But many of it is her feast days that have been inserted into what would be the Christian church. Come out of her. Come away from it. Do your own study. You don't have to believe what I am saying, but what I am saying, just don't get all offended and decide in your heart that I'm wrong without doing the research for yourself. I think you'll be surprised, but come on, let's go. I have no idea who that guy is, but that's what we're being told to do. We're told to come out of that abominable mother of harlot church. We are coming into the truth, and the true church is out there. You just have to look for it. The church is always on the move. The church is always being built, but the church is not staying in the same place season after season, year after year. The church is on the move because God is always bringing a church from a church. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If I've offended you, well, go do your studying, and I won't be sorry. I don't like to create enemies, but at the same time, I very much love the truth, and I love my God, and if you're offended by this, I hope you come to know Him. But Lord willing, we'll be back with you next week. Goodbye, and God bless.